How dare him come and sue MyPillow? He's a scumbag for doing that. Put that in there, scumbag, S-C-U-M bag. That's what he is, for what he did to me.
Hello everybody and welcome back for another episode of Fundy Fridays. If you're new around these parts, my wife, the Reverend Jen, and I, well, on this channel we talk about things like American evangelical Christianity, conservative politics, pop culture, gay stuff, and the way all those things seem to just bump into each other, like bits of shredded foam in an overpriced, gimmicky pillow. And if you're not new around these parts, well, I probably know what you're thinking already.
Oh my gosh, she's bald! She's bald and she's torturing people who have hair!
To which I say, you're absolutely right. But for real, I'm just gonna jump straight into the main topic of today's episode because we're going to be discussing the US president's favorite discount bedding salesman, Mike Lindell. And let me tell you, it is a tale that leaves little room for wasted motion.
I actually bought a couple of pillows and they're very good. I have to tell you, they're great. I've slept so much better ever since.
And right up front, I'm going to tell you all that this video is just a combination of either things that are alleged or things that are just my opinion. Because Mike is a little trigger happy when it comes to the lawsuits, and Lord knows I don't need anything else on my plate right now. But to say that Mike Lindell is a multifaceted presence within the American zeitgeist, well, that's kind of underselling it a little bit. He is nothing if not layered, even if all of those layers are just different shades of concerning, unreasonable, or chaotic. For example, some of you may be coming to this video knowing Mike Lindell primarily as the scrappy, rags-to-riches founder of the MyPillow empire, who, through a combination of obsessive drive and blind luck, made a world-renowned sleep apparatus and built from it a fortune of millions.
Lindell spends $1.5 million a week on commercials to make sure that you know about his pillow.
I personally guarantee that MyPillow will be the most comfortable pillow you'll ever own.
He sold more than 41 million. An incredible success? You bet.
Others of you may know Mike for his famous story of substance abuse recovery, a man who spent years languishing through terrible addictions before finding Christ, overcoming drugs, and going on to spread the gospel while trying to help others break free of their own cycles of despair.
Right.
Your book, now out, is all about the rise of your rock bottom to the top.
Came out today. What are the odds from crack addict to CEO? And that's the part that people don't know is I was on a parallel railroad track. I was an addict, a cocaine addict first, then crack cocaine. So it's just, I invented MyPillow in 2004, but I didn't quit crack and everything until January 16th, 11 years ago today. On 2009.
Amazing.
Still, a lot of you probably know Mike as the guy who pissed away all of the good stuff I just mentioned through his own unchecked, fanatical devotion to Donald Trump. A relationship which has, by all accounts, led to the crumbling of his personal empire, the erosion of his public goodwill, and a lawsuit from a voting machine company for literally over $1 billion.
Donald Trump has become the biggest uniter of we the people in history. Of course, then the evil gave us the China virus and the 2020 election.
And truthfully, I have a feeling that many of you here today know Mike best as the creepy, mustachioed, smiling face staring back at you from cardboard pillow boxes on the Walmart as seen on TV shelf from years ago before they all suddenly seemed to just disappear overnight. And let me be the first to tell you, he is all of those things and much, much more. And much, much worse, and much, much weirder. And yet, like everything else going on in the Trump era, there's also something to be gained from digging deeper into Mike's story, seeing as he is one of Donald Trump's longest running and supposedly closest political allies. Because beneath all of Mike's layers of insanity, instability, and infamy, well, there's a metaphor for modern America that's just far too bleak and too obvious to let pass us by without more thorough observation. And so I'm going to do my best to cover, well, as much of it as possible. But before we just jump straight into the details, let's take a moment to hear from our unreasonably well-matched sponsor today, Helix Sleep. Hey everybody, Mike Lindell here, and I'm here to let you know that today's video is sponsored by Helix Sleep. They're running an awesome sale right now, so it is the perfect time to upgrade your mattress. Visit helixsleep.com/FundyFridays for more information. Hey everybody, it's Mike Lindell here. Things aren't going so great at my own bedding and sleep company, so today I'm here to sell you another bedding and sleep company, Helix Sleep. Now Helix Sleep, they're looking to bring you the best night of sleep of your life, and you know it's true because they wouldn't let me say if it wasn't true, and I'm Mike Lindell, world-renowned sleep expert and salesman. No one has ever meant more about a good night's sleep than me. These premium mattresses from Helix, they're affordable, they're customized to your needs. Wow, they'll even roll it up and ship it to your house in a box. And if you live inside the United States of America, it's free shipping. God bless America, and God bless Helix. Is that not enough for you? Well, you got a dog, or a wife, or a dog with a wife, or a wife with a dog, maybe? Well, I'm going to tell you that all of them are going to love this mattress. And I should know, because I've had multiple dogs and multiple wives. And let me tell you, they always make old Mike build all the furniture. But with Helix Sleep, it only takes me minutes to unroll and fluff up this big beauty right here. Now, you folks know old Mike Lindell. I'm the type of guy who likes to keep it real. But I also like to keep it customizable and luxurious. And so I took Helix Sleep Quiz, if you can believe it. It only took a few minutes and just a little bit of info, nothing classified. Just stuff like what position you sleep in or how firm you like your bed. And Helix was able to pair me with their premium Twilight Luxe mattress. And that's great because I like to sleep a lot, but I also like to stay up a lot. But I also like to sleep a lot. Now, my friends at Fundy Fridays, they've had their Helix mattress for over a year now. And let me tell you, they say it's the best night of sleep they've ever gotten, and it's not even close. It's comfortable, it's plush, even a year on end, and the animals love it. What more could you want? Now, I know what you all may be saying. Hey, Mike, I'm not some sucker. I'm an American, and I like to try before I buy, and I respect that. That's why Helix Sleep offers a free 100-night trial of all their mattresses. And only then do they say, hey, you gotta make a decision, bud. And let me tell you, you can get a lot done in 100 nights. You can even figure out how to keep a fake mustache on. But even beyond that, Helix offers flexible payment plans too, and a 10-year warranty, and that's a whole decade of warranty. And if all of that's not enough to convince you to buy a premium Helix mattress, well, what if I told you that, unlike my company, Helix Sleep not only has a A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, but they've never had their accreditation revoked. And not to mention their mattresses are assembled here in the good old US of A, and they don't even contain fiberglass, because people are out there sleeping on fiberglass, if you can believe it. And did you know that fiberglass is really dangerous? It'll make you itchy? I didn't think so. Well, I wouldn't want to be sleeping on something like that, and neither should you. Helix's Sleep Awareness Month flash sale is live right now, running for a limited time only. Visit helixsleep.com/FundyFridays to get 25% off your mattress. So once again, thanks to Helix Sleep for sponsoring today's video, and now back to the other video about me, Mike Lindell. All right, I want to let you all know that I really had planned to wear the whole Mike Lindell getup you just saw throughout the entire episode, but the mustache wouldn't stay on, not to mention that wig made my head sweat like you wouldn't believe. So that's why you're getting the more casual getup you get right now. Likewise, I want to let you all know up front that this episode of Fundy Fridays is going to be what I would call chronologic-ish. We're going to start at the very beginning of Mike's story like we usually do, but this is a story that can't be fully contained by the laws of time, space, decency, or hell, the laws of the United States for that matter. Likewise, there may be times where I'm just fully telling the story of Mike Lindell in chronological order, but his disjointed-ass life means it doesn't make a lot of sense either way. So I say all of that to prepare you up front that this metaphorical city bus that is today's episode of Fundy Fridays, well, it's probably going to be taking an unusually high number of stops, detours, or roundabouts as we traverse the landscape of Lindell City, so to speak. But like I said, we're going to start our story at the beginning, technically speaking, and for those purposes, we will start out in the town of Chaska, Minnesota. Michael James Lindell was born on June 28, 1961 in southern Minnesota, and spent most of his young life in the small town of Chaska. A lovely little town of about 20,000 people, it would seem. Mike was born in Chaska, and bit of a spoiler, but he also still operates the MyPillow headquarters out of Chaska to this very day. But before his days as the Pillow Princess, Mike tells in his 2019 self-published autobiography, What Are the Odds?, of a much more humble, traditional childhood, filled with such classic experiences as untreated ADHD, getting ripped on peppermint schnapps, and gambling with his parents for nickels. You can pause to read everything I'm putting on the screen right now, but rest assured, it's all in there. And as one might expect from a person whose parents couldn't enjoy card games with their young son without having skin in the game first, Mike reports developing a pretty nasty gambling addiction in his early teen years. This habit would start out small with just bets on local Minnesota Vikings or Twins games, but would eventually evolve into a decades-long problem with everything from craps to blackjack, alongside tens of thousands of dollars of illicit debt to various bookies. Likewise, reportedly Mike's appetite for addictive substances would also grow right alongside his gambling problem, starting with alcohol issues in his mid-teens, before blossoming into full-blown cocaine addiction further along in the 1980s. Thankfully for Mike at least, it sounds like he was a tirelessly motivated and entrepreneurial spirit, who would work hard enough to at least somewhat justify this hard partying lifestyle of his. Around the time in his life where he was developing these addictions, Mike reports opening a lunch wagon/concession business called Sunshine Concessions, where he would sell food and snacks on things like construction sites, alongside friend and business associate Lee Tischliter, the first of several establishments the two would co-own together, and the first of many businesses that Mike himself would operate. Now, notably, Tischliter was interviewed in 2021 and reported at that time having, quote-unquote, no time for Mike, and also stated that because of Mike's criminal record and well-known substance issues, money borrowed for their endeavors all had to be done in Tischliter's name, which I expect might be a contributing factor in his current attitude towards his former business partner. Because Mike does report that at this time in his life, he also spent a fair amount of time doing petty crimes of various intensity. That being said, Mike and his friend at the time, Lee, would end up evolving their concession business by purchasing a restaurant known as the Statesman in 1986. And throughout his life, Mike would end up owning several bars and restaurants to go alongside with a carpet cleaning business that he supposedly started because his sister needed help cleaning up a leaky waterbed. The restaurant, though, the Statesman, it holds a bit of a special place in Mike's story, though, since it is this establishment where Mike would first meet a woman by the name of Karen Dickey, with whom he would end up having 4 children and who would become his first wife in 1987. Yes, first wife, very subtle foreshadowing, I know. But it was during this first marriage where Mike would develop another relationship, which would honestly end up probably being more consequential to his story than the entire first marriage in general, or at least more important for the purposes of our story today. And specifically, I mean Mike's relationship to crack cocaine, which he reports starting to use in the mid-1990s, and which saw his substance abuse issues move from something you might call functional use and into something that was a truly all-encompassing addiction. Now, I want to say right up front that I am not making fun of Mike for his addiction to crack cocaine or anything else for that matter. And addiction in general is a disease that should be respected as such. And Mike's recovery from addiction, which is something we'll discuss later on, well, it's still something to both celebrate and admire, independent of anything else we talk about in the course of this episode. That being said, Mike's former addiction to crack is a central part of his brand and public persona anymore. And honestly, with the way Mike talks about his crack addiction sometimes, it's pretty funny all on its own too.
I come back upstairs at 2:30 in the morning, and after an hour of trying to buy crack, nobody would sell me crack. They had got the word out. Don't sell them anything. I promise I'll be innocent next Tuesday, and if I'm not, you can arrest me anytime, and I promise I'll have cocaine on me. They said, now, whatever you do, don't tell Mr. Trump that you were an ex-crack addict. I walked in that room, and one of the first things I said was, yeah, I was an ex-crack addict.
So all of that is to say that I am going to do my best to be very polite about this sensitive subject throughout the course of this episode. But I'm also going to say that Mike Lindell is Nutter Butters, and sometimes his particular addictions were just plain funny.
There's no way you could do a pillow show and smoke crack.
And anyway, it's not like Mike was completely struggling throughout this time in his life either. Because, see, it was during this period of active addiction where Mike would develop the thing that would eventually become the cornerstone of his empire, the MyPillow. Mike reports that he first developed the prototype for the MyPillow in 2004. After years of difficulty sleeping, thanks in no small part, he says, to the difficulty finding a consistently comfortable pillow. Which, okay, sure, Mike, I'm totally convinced that it was your pillow that was causing your sleep problems and not, the crack. But whatever. But still, motivated by his own difficulties sleeping, no matter where they came from, that would lead Mike to obsess over the idea of developing the perfect pillow. And through hellfire and crack rock, Mike would soldier forward with this idea. Through a combination of trial, error, and research, which I put very intentionally in quotation marks, but we will discuss later on. Because either way, Mike eventually would develop a version of his MyPillow that seemed to be a kind of radical step forward in the world of sleep technology. At least as he says it.
Sleep is one of the most important things to your health, and MyPillow is one of the most important things to your sleep. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Now, from everything I could find, the MyPillow's primary and really only innovation was the introduction of shredded polyurethane foam. Reportedly, the shredded foam kind of works similar to a buckwheat pillow, wherein the small size of the filling allows it to more easily conform to the user's head and neck profile, with the added additional benefit that soft foam is generally a nice thing to sleep and put your head on. Now, full disclosure, I did not buy a MyPillow for the purposes of this episode, nor have I ever used one, nor do I intend to do either of those things. But reviews I looked up generally describe it as being either a good or otherwise somewhat underwhelming pillow.
Today I am here to give a review on the MyPillow, Mike Lindell's MyPillow. My fingers meet in the middle on this pillow. I got the thickest one they have. And look at this. Look. I mean, come on, Mike Lindell, that's junk. Absolute junk. Look at all this is just fabric up here, no pillow. Double thumbs down on the MyPillow.
But armed with this supposedly revolutionary technology of his, Mike would set forth with all of his time, money, and effort with the goal of capitalizing on this new product he'd developed. Mike would sell his 4 restaurants and his carpet cleaning business, and found a whole new company to oversee this pillow plan, starting the MyPillow organization formally in 2004. Mike would begin in 2004 to put all of his time and effort into this new endeavor of pillow making, frantically developing both his product and his brand, while also investing a ton of money towards pillow making materials, manpower, and most importantly, marketing. And we have reached the first major detour we're going to take in this story, but I swear this is kind of an important thing to know about Mike Lindell. And that is that as far as I can tell throughout all of my research, buying ad time is the thing Mike is truly the best at. Like, you know how Batman, they always say his superpower's not the martial arts or the gadgets or whatever, it's actually being the world's greatest detective, if you've ever heard that? Well, it's kind of like that here, too. For Mike, the pillows and the politics, all of that takes a backseat to his real superpower, pure, uncut ad purchasing. I mean, seriously. This is a guy who has rented out entire theaters full of people just to make documentaries about himself, and furthermore, who has rented out whole TV networks to show off his self-made documentaries. Truly a pioneer of paying to push your own brand is Mike Lindell. I mean, if you want more proof, even his bestest friend on earth, Donald Trump, says so. Mike Lindell is the best person on earth when it comes to spending money on advertisements.
You ever see this guy with the pillows on Fox? My Pillow guy, Mike Lindell. Where is Mike? He is the greatest. I have never seen so many ads for so long. And you know what? I think he gets them for like peanuts. And I said, you know, I want you to be my ad buyer because I guarantee you he makes great deals. So I haven't asked him yet. Will you be my ad buyer, please, Mike? The MyPillow guy. Thank you, Mike. Also, a friend of mine, somebody with tremendous courage, the greatest purchaser of advertising in the history of the world. There is no man that can buy. If I said, I'll tell you what, if I let him buy my ads, you would have Trump ads on all day, all night, and I would have paid half for them. The great, legendary Mike Lindell and Mrs. Lindell. Mrs. Lindell.
So yeah, I want you to keep all of that in mind as we move on. Mike is pretty good at making pillows, sure, but his real talent is getting good deals from advertising partners to push whatever idea he wants in the media. Anyway, let's circle back onto 2004, because we gotta note, MyPillow was not an overnight success, and reportedly those first few years with the company were, for Mike, a personal and financial struggle. And not to mention, he was still actively struggling with substance use at this time. Though in his book, Mike does say he was at this point mostly still able to hide it from his family, though I must say, I have my doubts about that.
Lizzie, you were the one that first saw the papers everywhere in the house. So can you explain what happened in the middle of the night?
All right, so I walked upstairs to get a glass of water randomly one night. And basically he was sitting at the counter with a bunch of papers everywhere. I asked him what he was doing, and he's like, I'm making pillows now. And I'm like, oh, that's really random.
I love it. That's enough. So, Darren, what was your role in the beginning of this dream?
Well, in the beginning, we're going to make the first prototype for a friend of his son to test out, and we're ripping foam with, by our hands on the deck of our house, just making pillows, and we give him one and come home the next day. I'm ready to go outside and play with my friends, and he says, nope, wasn't good enough. We got to make another one. It's got to be perfect. So
I was going to school for a fine arts degree, and yeah, so he drove up in the middle of the night. Yeah, he came to my college apartment, knocked on the door, and my roommates were a little freaked out that my dad was at our apartment, but yeah, he wanted me to draw a logo out, and I was really confused, but I did it.
Yeah, Mike, I don't think you were hiding that crack addiction quite as well as you might think you were.
Never mind that. This is your chance to make the big impression.
Are you cracked?
Oh, and speaking of all that, another quick detour. Because apparently, Mike had a very particular habit at this time in his life and career of either staying up or driving all through the night, just like he mentioned there about driving to his daughter's apartment. For example, he also talks very randomly about driving 14 hours through the night to make sure some random child got his birthday MyPillows on time in the face of some delays at the post office, which admittedly, I don't get because I cannot imagine a gift of pillows being that important to anybody on their birthday, let alone a child.
Back in the day, I drove 3 states one time, 16 hours to deliver a birthday present of MyPillow to this young kid because they didn't come in time in the mail, and it wasn't our fault. But it was. I wanted him to have that present.
But there's also that time where Mike drove apparently 16 hours all through the night to give then Minnesota Vikings rookie wide receiver Percy Harvin free MyPillows, which notably Percy did not purchase or request from Mike, but which was something Mike thought might help with Percy's migraines, which was a thing he heard about on the news. Beyond just driving through the night to deliver these pillows to people, though, at this early stage in his career, Mike primarily made his money selling the pillow at either mall kiosks or trade shows, but without any major financial success up to that point. And perhaps not surprisingly, Mike's marriage to Karen Dickey would fall apart around 2007. I suspect it is hard to maintain a healthy marriage and partnership when you think you're doing a great job hiding your addictions from the kids, while in reality probably acting more like Dr. Roxo around the house.
Hey, little boy with the balloon, check this out. Cocaine, don't tell nobody.
At this point in his life, though, Mike would also end up sinking further and further into his addictions, reportedly behaving erratically and neglecting the entire MyPillow brand for long stretches of time, during long crack binges where he himself reports staying up for days on end just to do more of the drug. When, in March of 2008, a trio of Mike's own drug dealers would cut him off reportedly in the middle of a 2-week wide-awake binge, stage an intervention for Mike, and remind him of his constant babbling about how he was totally going to get off the junk and make something of himself someday.
The drug dealers did an intervention on me in the spring of 2008.
Drug dealers?
Yeah, I came out of the room, and 3 of the biggest dealers in Minneapolis are standing there, and they're going, and I'm downtown in the worst part of Minneapolis because I had a warrant out for my arrest, and I've been up for 14 days with no sleep. And they said, we're cutting you off. You've been up for 14 days. And I said, I've only been up for 12, and they're,
like that's better.
Yeah, that's better. And I said, what is this, an intervention? They said, call it what you will. You've been telling us MyPillow is just a platform for God, and that you're going to come back and help us all someday, and that you're our, I was their hope, and to get out of this addiction and everything. He said, to get out of this addiction lifestyle we're leading.
They even took this photograph of Mike at his lowest, encouraging him to use it later when he got clean to remind himself of the bad times and remember how far he had come. And ironically, this story and this photo now both show up a lot in Mike's own personal promotional materials. Now, it would take Mike a little while longer to accomplish this lofty goal of his, but eventually he would give up crack cocaine entirely, starting on January 16th of 2009 and reportedly staying sober ever since then, like to this day. And no joke, that is a hell of an accomplishment, and it should be celebrated no matter what. But in regards to his business, Mike would continue to toil on for the next several years, even after getting clean, working hard and treading water financially while trying to find ways to bring his pillow to the mainstream. He would find one major celebrity endorser throughout this time frame in the form of Don Imus.
Well, most people, when you sleep, flip-flopping around, tossing and turning, does your pillow go flat? Well, if it's a MyPillow commercial, that's what it is. I'm begging you to buy them. Now, here's why you should buy one. To see if I'm right. That's one. But 2, it'll change your life because you'll get some rest. And you'll actually, I went to bed late because of reading O'Reilly's dopey book. But I went to sleep quickly and stayed asleep because of MyPillow. I swear to God.
For reference to those who don't know, Imus was a shock jock radio host, kind of a dollar store Howard Stern, whose career was marred by consistent patterns of, mostly racism, but also just being kind of a crappy person in general. And to give you an idea, Imus had already been thoroughly canceled before that was even actually a term, all the way back in 2007. After making some pretty awful comments about the women's basketball team from Rutgers University. And Mike didn't start working with him until around 2010 or so, a full 3 years after that. So yeah, in the beginning, things were pretty bleak. But finally, after years of working on it, Mike would eventually strike gold with the MyPillow, specifically with the Infomercial.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. I've invented the world's most comfortable pillow. I make them right here in the United States. Do not change that channel because the next half hour is going to change your life.
Yeah, I'm betting a lot of you saw this infomercial. This is how most people I know got introduced to Mike Lindell. But in a last-ditch effort to promote his product, Mike scraped together, rounded up a few $100,000 from friends, family, and other investors to produce, star, and distribute his own MyPillow infomercial. A 20-minute tour de force of Mike Lindell at his most Mike Lindell. And selling Mike Lindell's greatest creation, no less.
You've all done that with your arms, folded your pillows, and done all this stuff, and flip-flopped all night like a guppy. Here, you stay with MyPillow. Yep. The big pillow companies want you buying more and more pillows, and they don't care about your health. They don't care about our sleep. They don't care that we keep buying pillows over and over and over again. Yep. I just wanted some sleep, and I did something about it. And this pillow here, I can't say enough bad things about it. Terrible.
Mike, I love your pillow.
You can turn this any way you want. You can make little balloon animals out if you want. Okay, it's going to hold. It takes 6 pounds of pressure to hold that in position. Your average head weighs 12 pounds.
Jared, do you know the human head weighs 8 pounds?
Now, I do want to highlight that at this point in his career, Mike would begin being seen in public wearing a cross necklace, which would later become kind of a trademark of his, and which would feature heavily in his public persona throughout the years. Though he asserts that at this point in his life, he wasn't a true Christian. But still, keep that cross in mind for later on. But it seems to be here where Mike first discovered that ad-buying superpower we talked about earlier on, blasting this creation of his as far and as wide as he could possibly go, reportedly paying to run the infomercial upwards of 200 times per day, mostly on the late-night circuit, it would seem. Incredibly, though, Mike would end up seeing success with this endeavor nearly immediately, with his initial ad blitz taking place in the latter half of 2011, before his infomercial would essentially go viral and become the #1 rated infomercial on the planet by January of 2012, catapulting MyPillow sales to over $100 million in just a few short months, and maintaining said growth for years to come. Now, truth be told, a lot of that success probably has to do with Mike's own brand of entertaining, charismatic fervor, which was admittedly a relatively fun watch, at least by the standards of a late-night infomercial. But it also must be said that Mike may have been overselling his qualifications a little bit, by which I mean he was like Shawn Michaels overselling Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam 2005. Now, of course, Mike did technically mention, even in these early infomercials, that he wasn't claiming anything concrete about the medical benefits of MyPillow. And yet, throughout the entirety of this first infomercial, Mike is repeatedly billed as some kind of sleep expert who has done significant research into the medical side of sleep, which, I'm sorry, but he was on crack when he invented the damn thing, so call me skeptical.
My friend and sleep expert, Michael J. Lindell, is the founder and inventor of a revolutionary new sleep aid.
What it is, what I've found in my studies over the last 7 years, is the cervical nerves on each side of your neck need to be held straight in order to get that deep REM sleep that we all need. That's our healing sleep. Healing is critical to one's health, and pillows are the problem. There is no bigger problem than our pillows.
Easily form MyPillow to your unique shape, providing maximum comfort and support of the cervical nerves in your neck and spine, resulting in the most restful, comfortable, deep healing sleep you've ever experienced.
That 1 in 30, Tanya. You take the pillow, you do it like this, you tuck it, and you know what? No more snoring, okay? I mean, and the reason is you're supporting your C1 and C2. Your breathing is better. Other companies have said, oh, yeah, we have this amazing cure for snoring. This will really work. And from my testimonials I have from all the pillows I've sold, about 70% of the people don't snore anymore at all.
And please note that at least as far as I can tell, Mike has a high school education and absolutely no formal background in sleep research beyond, I don't know, going to bed most nights? And given all that time on crack, driving through the night to drop off pillows with people who don't want them, he probably has even less experience with sleeping than the average person does. But none of that stopped Mike from claiming that the MyPillow could cure everything from snoring to migraines to fibromyalgia, claims for which he had no real evidence and which he would end up in court over, and for which he would eventually end up paying over $1 million in penalties in 2016 once the lawsuits were settled, despite never formally admitting any wrongdoing.
Pillows give you support here, and nothing where your C1 and 2 is, your axis and your ulna. Those are critical to snoring, to central sleep apnea, all these different things. You need support in your neck.
We're here with sleep expert Michael J. Lindell, founder and inventor of a revolutionary new sleep aid called MyPillow.
Over the last 7 years, what I've came up with is a theory after talking to hundreds of thousands of people that have the pillow. Yep. There's 8 cervical nerves on each side of your neck. And what they do, they need to be in alignment, okay, for the signals to go through to your brain. When you first get set at night and you first get comfortable on your pillow, your brain says, okay, I'm comfortable because your cervical nerves are lined up.
Yep.
Well, what happens is the air starts going out of that pillow, and then they're bent like bending a water hose. Okay, when you do that, you're going, your brain is not, the signal's not going through. Okay, same way with your arteries, your vertebral artery and your carotid artery. The blood flow to the brain needs to be, open like a garden.
Is that why my concentration is so much better after I sleep on my pillow?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right, but I don't know enough about
cervical nerves
to dispute it.
No, it's right. It's not right. All right.
Oh, Mike also got in trouble in those same lawsuits for referring to the MyPillow as the official pillow of the National Sleep Foundation, even though the NSF itself never actually claimed it was the official pillow of anything. and also without divulging the NSF's financial stake in his own MyPillow company, since the foundation sold the MyPillow on their own website. Oh, and just because I don't really have anywhere else to mention it, Mike also very famously got in trouble in 2016 again for promoting a buy one get one free offer on the MyPillow website, specifically for misleading customers about which style of MyPillow was eligible for the BOGO sale, but also for running a BOGO sale for so long and so continuously that the government decided he really just needed to change the price of the pillows. And it was also this part of the story which would end up with MyPillow's Better Business Bureau accreditation getting revoked entirely. They didn't even just give him an F, they revoked his entire accreditation over this.
Of the hundreds of complaints, many came from consumers confused or angry about the offer. One customer wrote on the BBB's website, "This is false advertising. The offer, buy one, get one free, should be $49, the price of one pillow. This company clearly is lying to all of us." Another claimed they advertise buy one, get one free, but this is very misleading. The BBB dropped MyPillow's company rating from an A+ to an F and revoked its accreditation. But the company's CEO says,
if they feel I've ran it too long, that's, that I don't agree with that, and I have my new ads coming out in January.
MyPillow inventor Michael Lindell defends his advertising.
I had to make a decision as a CEO, and I'm going to live with that decision I made, so people got great deals for Christmas for MyPillow. Whatever the BBB does now, that's their choice.
And yet, as far as I can tell, throughout the period from 2012 to 2016, Mike would reap the benefits of his dubious, if not effective, sales strategy about a bajillion times over, making a buttload of money and becoming a kind of celebrity entrepreneur in the process. And in turn, and as you might expect, it was around this time in Mike's life where things would start going from weird to really weird. For one, there is his 2013 quickie marriage to former executive assistant Dallas Yoakum, a grandiose affair for which no expense was spared and included such lavish features as a fancy full-course meal, a meal which required multiple forks, mind you, even though Mike consistently refers to himself as a non-fancy one-forker meal kind of guy, a 5-figure firework display, and even appearances from Mike's favorite singers, Bob Seger and Otis Redding. Or, okay, at least a guy who was in Bob Seger's backup band and a singer named Otis. Although the guy's name isn't actually really Otis, he just got famous for acting like a singer named Otis in the movie Animal House. But still, almost no expense spared, and all of it making it much, much weirder when the couple would divorce just 2 months later in August of 2013.
MyPillow.com CEO Mike Lindell is sure to be shaking his head a long time over his June 8th marriage to company executive Dallas Yoakum. The marriage was over almost as fast as the celebration's fireworks. In less time than it took Kim Kardashian to decide that she was just not that into being married to Chris Humphries, Yoakum reportedly informed Lindell he was boring and she was out of there.
I'm in the room, you're not alone.
Oh, and just because I really don't have anywhere else to talk about it in the story, as of today, Mike may be married to a woman named Kendra Reeves, or she may be his girlfriend. I found reports of both and nothing conclusive. He also claims that it was this Kendra Reeves person who formally led him to Christ around 2017, though he had been, informally practicing Christianity for years before that, and honestly, who knows anyway. But going back to 2013, following his infomercial-based financial success, Mike would both end up with time on QVC and also really stepped up his celebrity endorsement game. We can see that in this little clip he filmed with, of all people, Soulja Boy, which I also feel the need to point out is the first ever video uploaded to the MyPillow official YouTube channel.
Hey Mike, better this pillow. All the TV channels now, you sleep, the pillows go flat, you use your arm, and you flip them up all night long. Okay, here I think I've seen you on TV before. Have you really?
He's been on TV before? Like a lot of times?
And of course, we can't forget the custom chopper he received from Orange County Customs in April of 2012.
And the seat actually has the inside of MyPillow.
Nor do we want to forget his budding friendship with Stephen Baldwin, either the third or fourth most famous Baldwin brother, depending on your perspective towards Justin and Hailey Bieber, which includes their work organizing the world's largest pillow fight back in July of 2015. A record that would in fact end up only being broken by Mike himself in 2018 at an even larger pillow fight he put on. And yet, of all the celebrity friends Mike was picking up around this time in his life, there is of course none more impactful than the current president of these United States himself, Donald John Trump. Because reports indicate that it was around 2015 where Mike would first meet Donald Trump, and apparently would become instantly smitten with the man. We can actually hear Mike tell a little bit of that story himself in a 2018 interview with none other than Laura Loomer. Here, a full half-decade before her rise into the political mainstream, or at least as mainstream as she is now. So Mike was kind of an early adopter of Laura. And honestly, I think that kind of telegraphs somewhat the brand of hyper-conservative insanity we're going to be seeing from him a bit later on. But regardless, once again, let's hear Mike talk a little bit about this early relationship with Donald Trump.
You explained what it was like meeting President Trump and then coming out. How has it affected your business since you came out as a pro-Trump businessman?
Well, you have to go back. When I first met him, I mean, I was never political. I didn't know. I know what I am. I met him in August 15, 2016, after a series of divine appointments. I was never... I met Ben Carson. I got invited to the National Prayer Breakfast. Mm-hmm. I was randomly picked out of 12 people to pray with him. And he was still running for president then. And when I met him, it was just him and I. I walked in, he says, Mike, you always wear your cross, are you a Christian? I said, yes, and this is a divine appointment. And we're talking, and we talked about the inner city, what I was going to do with my foundation, and what his plans were, and his agenda to help the country. And when I walked out of that room, I suppose it was a half hour, and all the amazing things he had talked about, I go, wow, this guy's going to be the best president in history.
And following these early initial meetings with Trump, Mike almost immediately took an exceptionally active role in supporting the Trump presidential campaign. Not only just endorsing Trump, but donating to and stumping for him throughout the entire 2016 election cycle. And from there, Mike would become something of a semi-fixture of the Trump orbit starting around 2017, following his first presidential victory. Speaking at events and rallies on the president's behalf, while utilizing both the MyPillow empire and his own personal story of substance recovery to support the MAGA cause. Mike's MyPillow business, for example, was held up often by Trump as an example and paragon of US-based manufacturing success.
I'm very proud that every part, even the cotton, is grown in the USA.
At that meeting, Congressman Eric Paulson, who's sitting next to Lindell, revealed he sleeps on a MyPillow. And the president congratulated Lindell on his good work.
Likewise, though, Mike made himself a prominent feature of Trump's supposed focus on the opioid epidemic in America, adding the legitimacy of his own recovery from drugs to what was otherwise a relatively dubious legislative effort on Trump's part. And truthfully, just another thing he tried to blame on Mexico. This includes setting up the supposed Lindell Recovery Network around 2019, though reports are conflicted as to when that thing actually started, or hell, what it even actually does.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Welcome to the Lindell Recovery Network. You all know me as the inventor of MyPillow, but what you might not know is that for over 30 years, I had many addictions, including crack cocaine. I tried many times in many ways to quit my addictions, including going to meetings, counseling, treatment centers, you name it, I've tried it. Everything I've experienced in my life has helped me to develop the most revolutionary platform for addiction ever. What I'd like you to do to get started is enter your age and your addiction below, and you will see people that have made it through. You're going to see your hope matches.
So yeah, while I want to believe that Mike's doing something good for the recovery community or whatever it may be, the thick coat of Lindell brand BS all over this thing, and the fact that he once again has no real qualifications for such an endeavor, well, it all makes me a little bit suspicious, shall we say. And you know what? Let's take this moment to go on another detour, because quite frankly, I don't know where else I'd bring this up anyway, but Mike Lindell makes a lot of websites. Seriously, throughout my research, this is just a short list of the websites that I found that Mike either owns or operates or has some sort of significant stake in some capacity. LindellTV.com, FrankSpeech.com, which I'm pretty sure was his attempt to make like a competitor/leech product to Truth Social. Right now anymore it redirects to Lindell TV, but it still uses home.frankspeech.com as the domain name. There's also FrankSocial.com, again, which kind of leads me to believe he was just trying to grift off of the whole Truth Social thing, although that currently redirects to Vocal.com, and that's spelled VOCL.com. But he also started VocalSocial.com, which currently redirects to Vocal.com. And then there's the Lindell Recovery Network that we just talked about. That's a .org. Then there's, of course, MyPillow.com, along with LindellOffenseFund.com, which is, I think, kind of his own personal home webpage now. And it seems like the only role of the Lindell Offense Fund website is to allow people to just donate to Mike's various legal defenses or offensive campaigns. Now, I gotta be honest, from what I can tell, it kind of seems like Mike might be getting taken for a ride by less than honest programmers, tech people, those types of folks who are convincing him that he's going to make the greatest new social media website of all time, while in reality just draining his bank accounts and leaving him with half-broken websites.
Can you imagine now all the influencers coming like your Right Side Broadcasting? These guys, it's their livelihoods. People that have small podcasts, they rely on income from their advertising, and this is going to be the best. People are going to have more followers, 10 times more followers. I can't even tell you that part. That technology where you're going to have 10 times more of an audience. Steve, your own audience will be 10 times bigger. You're never going to have to worry about a YouTube or a Twitter again. Jack Dorsey and Mr. Google, they are going to be a thing of the past as far as those two entities go.
But anyway, getting back to our main story, as far as I can tell, 2020 was the year where Mike went off the deep end, so to speak. For example, it was in 2020 where Mike, at supposedly the direction of Donald Trump, redirected many of MyPillow's manufacturing resources to making face masks, which is, on its face, a noble endeavor of sorts.
MyPillow has designated some of its call center to help U.S. companies navigate the many issues that resulted from this pandemic. We've dedicated 75% of my manufacturing to produce cotton face masks. Up to in 3 days, I was up to 10,000 a day. By Friday, I want to be up to 50,000 a day.
Although he later claimed to have lost millions of dollars just giving the masks away, while also claiming that they didn't help contain the spread of the virus, even though we know they did help contain the spread of the virus. And while at the same time heavily promoting the use of a drug called oleandrin as a possible cure for COVID, despite the fact that oleandrin was, by all reports, completely ineffective against COVID, and which was also a derivative of the highly toxic oleander plant, and which just so happened to be a medical technology developed by a company called Phoenix Biotechnology, which Mike himself sat on the board of, and which itself produced the only 2 studies related to oleandrin's safety and efficacy towards treating COVID.
The first time MyPillow was attacked was the summer of 2020, not with the election stuff. It was attacked with, I had a supplement that worked on the China virus, and I put all my money into that, and then instead, Pfizer, the FDA turned on me. They wouldn't let me give it out. I was going to give it out free. I had $10 million worth. I borrowed money to buy it all. They stopped it here in the U.S. Then they stopped at me getting it into Israel when they made a dirty deal with Pfizer. Then they stopped me to get it into the Philippines. They stopped me to get it in Brazil. That was to give it away and save lives.
Any other questions?
Frank Lindell, Mr. Pillow, the pillow guy, he's promoting a new therapeutic for COVID-19. Oleandrin, and he says you're enthusiastic about it. Is that true?
I know nothing about it other than I know he's got something that he's working with some science people. I don't know.
Likewise, it was also in 2020 where Mike made a $50,000 donation to an organization called the Fight Back Fund, which ended up primarily just being a fund through which they paid Kyle Rittenhouse's bail. And while Mike claimed he didn't know that's what his money was going to be used for before he donated it, he also expressed no intention or desire to rescind the donation. But Mike would save his full-blown final form of craziness for after the 2020 election, nearly immediately becoming one of, if not the loudest voice in the country in support of Donald Trump's election fraud claims. Reportedly, by December of 2020, just a month after the election, Mike was already sponsoring a bus tour to go nationwide and try and challenge the election results. And as you might expect, Mike also attended January 6th, although as far as I can tell, he only went to the rally and didn't go to the Capitol, which I have to admit kind of surprised me. But later on in January of 2021, but before Biden's inauguration, Mike reportedly visited Trump at Mar-a-Lago to discuss the election results because, of course, a pillow salesman is the person the former president should be talking about this stuff with. But it was here where Mike reportedly encouraged Trump to install current FBI director and well-known Trump attack dog Kash Patel as the director of the CIA. As if Mike's opinion should count for frickin' anything. And almost immediately after that, Mike would start to accuse two well-known voting machine manufacturers, specifically Smartmatic and Dominion, of tampering with the election results. Now, as one might expect, this is about the single most serious accusation a voting machine company can possibly face. And as such, Mike was hit nearly immediately with billion, not million, billion-dollar lawsuits, particularly from Dominion. Specifically, Dominion would file a suit to the tune of about $1.3 billion against Mike Lindell, charging that he had significantly harmed their business with his election fraud claims. And in turn, Mike would countersue just a month later for $1.6 billion for, I'm not entirely sure what he countersued for. To the point where even the hyper-conservative Newsmax channel backed off and retracted some of their own election fraud messaging that they had developed and pushed with Mike. In fact, during a February 2021 Newsmax segment, Mike nearly got himself kicked off the conservative network entirely for continually directing his interviewers to talk about the election fraud issue, despite repeatedly being told not to do so.
What happened with your Twitter account and the company page?
Well, first mine was taken down because we have all the election fraud with these Dominion machines. We have 100% proof. And then when they took it down about 3 weeks ago, and then when I put it back up, my personal, it was a
Mike,
thing about
thank you very much. Mike, you're talking about machines that we at Newsmax have not been able to verify any of those kinds of allegations. We just want to let people know that there's nothing substantive that we've seen. And let me read you something there. While there were some clear evidence of some cases of vote fraud and election irregularities, the election results in every state were certified, and Newsmax accepts the results as legal and final. The courts have also supported that view.
They did this because I'm revealing all the evidence on Friday of all the election fraud with these machines. So I'm sorry if you think it's not
Mike,
it's real.
Can I ask our producers, can we get out of here, please? I don't want to have to keep going over this.
Actually,
we at Newsmax have not been able to verify any of those allegations that you're
Mike, hold on a second. Everybody hold on a second. Mike, hold on 1 second. Let's talk a little bit about just what is happening overall in terms of censorship of...
It was also right around this time where Mike got not just himself, but the entire MyPillow brand kicked off of Twitter for his rabid, disingenuous spreading of election fraud claims. Though, as you might expect, Elon Musk made absolutely sure to reinstate Mike's Twitter handle as soon as he took over the Twitter, or X, or whatever they're calling it now, platform. But Mike was undeterred, later going on in 2021 to produce his own 3-hour-long election fraud documentary, which he dubbed Absolute Proof, which he paid for time on the highly conservative One America News Network just to air, who, by the way, put a massive disclaimer on the thing just to put as much distance between themselves and all of Mike's legal liability as they possibly could, and which earned itself both the Golden Raspberry for Worst Picture of 2021, and which also earned Mike Lindell himself their Golden Raspberry for Worst Actor the same year. Not that it mattered to Mike, he would go on just a few months later to produce a sequel to the documentary he just made. And I also want to highlight to everyone, I'm not using a lot of clips from Absolute Proof because both Jen and I tried to watch this terrible thing, made it about 20 minutes before realizing it was incomprehensible garbage talk and moving on to better things with our day.
This is the one where you heard the fake ballots that were driven from New York to Pennsylvania. You'll hear a little about that in the show too. But this is it. We're going to go by Pennsylvania. You can all see it adds up to 866,000. Donald Trump lost by 68,000. And there'll be a point to all this I'm getting to.
You know, they say all men are created equal, but you look at me and you look at Small Joe, and you can see that statement is not true. See, normally if you go one-on-one with another wrestler, you got a 50-50 chance of winning. But I'm a genetic freak, and I'm not normal. So you got a 25% at best at beating me. And then you add Kurt Angle to the mix, your chances of winning drastically go down.
Now, by the summer of 2021, Mike was already referring to Trump as our quote-unquote real president.
Today I'm proud to welcome to our great state of Minnesota our real president, Donald J. Trump.
And holding big, expensive cyber symposiums where he claimed to have absolute proof, no pun intended, of election fraud, despite not actually having that.
If you're correct, if you have that evidence...
No. Why? Just forget about the evidence. If I'm right that China took our country right now, do you care? Would that bother you? Would that bother you?
But you have to show the proof for it,
no,
right?
Would that bother you?
Of course it would.
Okay, then why do you think I keep going? Do you think I like getting attacked?
This was attacked. The whole technology was attacked.
So the conference was supposed to begin about an hour ago, but Lindell is having some problems with streaming live the event on his website. He's claiming, without any evidence, that it's because of an attack, that his systems have been attacked.
There's hacks and cyber attacks every day, as you can see.
And it went downhill from there. Lindell ultimately didn't produce the data to prove his claim the election was stolen by China.
I think the guy makes a wonderful pillow, but I wish some of this information would have been organized a little better.
Now, the most important thing to know about this cyber symposium of Mike's is that it's here where he had, at least in my opinion, a bit of a relapse into problematic gambling, specifically with his Prove Mike Wrong challenge, wherein Mike put up $5 million of his own money in an open challenge, claiming that no one could mathematically invalidate his findings that China had interfered in the U.S. election. And please, bear that in mind. It's going to be coming up very soon. And moving out of the summer of 2021, Mike would begin to get a little more direct with his election fraud claims, specifically pushing the state of Idaho to review all of its ballots, citing some sort of obtuse claims about fraud that he claimed he could back up with IP addresses. I don't know. Idaho, though, to their credit, determined after thorough investigation that none of Mike's claims were correct or accurate, and in fact, billed him directly for the effort they took to check the votes. And moving into the next year, in January of 2022, Mike would claim to have evidence that could potentially lead to the arrest of 300 million Americans, which, if you go look it up, is about 90% of the U.S. population.
This is so amazing. All the things that we have, we already have all the pieces of the puzzle. And you talk about evidence. We had enough evidence to put everybody in prison for life, 300 and some million people. We had that all the way back to November, December.
I know we love throwing folks in jail in this country, but even then, that's a little ridiculous. And later on that year, Mike would end up having his phone seized by the FBI in September, which also seems to be when the last MyPillow mall-based retail location closed, highlighting all of the problems this election fraud nonsense was creating for Mike's business. And moving into 2023, things would only get worse for Mike. See, by that time, a cyber forensics expert by the name of Robert Zeidman, well, he had taken up that open challenge we talked about before and determined conclusively with a little bit of math and a 15-page report that Mike's data about Chinese interference in the US election from 2020, well, not only was it not credible, but it didn't even seem to contain any data from said election at all. But of course, Mike didn't want to pay up, and he was paying for the judges who decided that he didn't have to, leading to arbitration, which ended up leading to a lawsuit, which ended up leading to Zeidman winning the judgment and Mike being forced by the courts to pay out that $5 million.
Let's just start off here, right? He puts this challenge out there. He says that it would have to be arbitrated, and you take it all the way to the finish line. What's your reaction today when you find out you've been awarded $5 million from Mike Lindell?
Well, Aaron, thanks for having me. And I think it was relief, not because I doubted my own findings. In fact, I never expected to be able to show that it was bogus data, because normally data analysis could take weeks or months, and I had 3 days. But the data was so obviously fake that I spent a few hours before I could show it was fake.
And at this point, things seemed to be about as bad for Mike Lindell as they could possibly get. He would even start selling off MyPillow's manufacturing equipment, blaming the company's sagging sales and his own financial woes on cancel culture, as conservatives do. And yet it seems Mike still wasn't able to give up on his election fraud claims. Like in August of 2023, when he claimed he could prevent election fraud with drones. Specifically, drones he claimed could fly over polling places and sniff out any voting machines that might be connected to Wi-Fi.
This wireless monitoring device, it just grabbed all of your cell phones, everybody in this room, every device that's on the internet right now. Now, what this does, when this gathers information, I have a command center. I'm not even going to say what state, so they don't go after that. But there's a command center where this information goes down, it flashes, it'll go, router online, just went online in Missouri, right?
And things would get even worse for Mike just a month later, when footage from the depositions coming out of the Dominion lawsuit would leak to the public, and which would show Mike in a rather unfortunate mental state.
So you're just a lawyer, you're an ambulance chasing lawyer, so don't start with me. I got all day. I'll take as much time as you want. So let's go. You're not my boss, you're just a lawyer, frivolous lawyer. So go.
Why did you call me an ambulance chaser?
Because you are. This is a frivolous case, and if you're representing this guy and you've read this case, you are a disgusting lawyer. Period. That's my right to say. You want to sue me too, Mr. Ambulance Chaser? This is absolutely disgusting. It's a disgrace to our country. It's a disgrace to you.
Okay, and I'm not asking about the lumpy pillow calls.
No, they're not lumpy pillows. That's not what they call on. Okay? When you say lumpy pillows, now you're an You got that? You're an is what you are. No, he's a he's an ambulance chasing That's what you are. Nobody called because of a lumpy pillow. But good one, though.
You done?
Yeah, I'm done.
What I'm saying...
Obviously, you don't have a MyPillow, too. You don't, do you?
Mike's attorneys, in fact, would actually quit the Dominion case just a month after this deposition was leaked, citing that he owed them millions of dollars in back unpaid legal fees, and at which point Mike would express to the public that he was effectively broke. From a combination of said expensive legal fees, failed business ventures, and the mass removal of his MyPillow branded products from retail shelves due to all the controversy floating around him now.
This is the Lindell Report. On his online TV show, Minnesota's Mike Lindell, once a wealthy businessman and avid supporter of Donald Trump, made this stunning announcement this month.
I ran out of money. I have no money personally. Nothing left. Nothing left.
No money, he says, to pay the law firm defending him that's already owed millions.
Now, during this time, we can't pay lawyers. We can't pay lawyers, a couple $1 million a month. Well, you're going to pay lawyers. I can't go get the money.
It's still unclear how the withdrawal of his lawyers will impact the lawsuits, but Lindell is using his financial troubles for a new fundraising appeal, recently telling his online audience he'll keep fighting.
We need to save our country. They asked me today, the media, Mike, what are you going to do now? Are all your efforts going to fold up because you're out of money? And I said no.
And moving into 2024, things were not getting any better for Mike or MyPillow. For one thing, Smartmatic decided to join Dominion in suing Mike over his election fraud claims, citing the damage to their reputation as a voting machine manufacturer. In turn, Mike started to get kind of creative with his MyPillow brand in terms of trying to keep everything afloat and generate more revenue, shall we say. For one, there was the racist dog whistles that he used as coupon codes on the MyPillow website. But on a less horrifying and more humorous note, there was also the introduction of the My Cross. See, remember that cross I mentioned earlier that Mike wears in basically every public appearance he's ever done? Well, he started trying to sell replicas of this thing for $250 each. Now, yeah, sure, he swears they're American-made, although I could not for the life of me figure out who actually makes this thing. But there's also the fact that it's made out of what seems to be just stainless steel and resin as far as I can tell. And even on a website loaded with the most ridiculous coupon codes one could ever possibly hope to interact with on the internet, you can still only get $50 taken off the price of this thing. And for reference, that's why I used my cool Jordan and McKay Raider rosary in the ad you saw earlier, rather than actually buying one of these things, because I'll do a lot for Fundy Fridays, but I won't do that. Oh, and just because I don't have anywhere else to mention it, 2024 was also the year where Mike Lindell made a big show of shaving off his mustache and trying to sneak into the DNC undercover, which ended up resulting only in Mike going viral for yelling at a child.
That's in your state. You want to know more in your state?
So
they just found 257,000 votes. This happened last week. A judge ruled in Georgia that are missing from the 2020 election. This just came out. You're behind.
So your source is Trust Me, bro? That's your source?
The source, it's in your papers in Georgia. You need to read your news.
You haven't given me any last name.
You need to read your news. No, this is your Georgia news. This is your Georgia.
Thanks, buddy. Have a good day, sir.
And all of that ended up with MyPillow almost losing the rights to their manufacturing plant before Mike magically conjured up $500,000 in back rent somehow. And moving into the year of our Lord 2025, things only seem to continue to get worse and worse for Mike, even with his chosen messiah back in the White House. Because truly, y'all, the only news stories I could find about Mike Lindell or MyPillow at all from this year, they have to do with lawsuits. For one thing, Mike was found to be in contempt of court in regards to that Smartmatic lawsuit we just talked about, related to the fact that he refused to provide a bunch of required paperwork and documentation about his finances. Likewise, MyPillow is now getting sued by both FedEx and DHL for back payments on shipping costs related to the MyPillow brand. And yeah, that's all I could really find about Mike moving into this year. So while the rest of the MAGA crowd seems to be celebrating, he might be the only one who's actually getting his just desserts. And with that, let's move to my final thoughts, shall we? Because here's the thing about Mike Lindell. In another life, Mike really could have just been a guy who beat the odds, who overcame his addictions, who started a $1 million empire selling a decent product, and who put his money towards helping others who struggled with substances and addictions the way that he had. The problem, at least as far as I can tell, is that Mike Lindell is a megalomaniac who seems to think he's got some grandiose, overinflated part to play in the fate of our country, and who can't let those delusions go despite all of the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Because, like Trump, Mike is the kind of guy who claims that everything he touches is the first or the biggest or the best, even when it's patently not. He spends his money on the stupidest, most egoistic pursuits, actively harming our country while just trying to prove that he wasn't wrong about 2020, and who replaced all of the addictions he overcame those years ago with just a fanatical and stupid devotion to Donald Trump. And the great irritating irony of it all is that because of who he is and the pony he bet on, Mike is going to get that undeserved chance to make his mark on American politics and society. Because, by the way, this is the kind of person that Donald Trump wants to replace DEI with. Shitty, self-aggrandizing, low-skilled, half-baked, fully demented old white dudes. That's who Trump thinks are the best people to run this country, to run everything. And while anymore I think Mike has really settled into a role as the carnival jester of Trump's orbit, making a fool of himself wherever he goes and honestly serving mostly just as comedy for us left-leaning folks, we live in dark and unpredictable times, and that may not be the case forever. Who knows, we may end up in just a few short months with a Department of Sleep and Mike as the Secretary of Sleep. Because it wouldn't surprise me for Trump to do something that stupid just so old boy can have a job when MyPillow goes under. Those of us on the left wing need to be shaming and mocking people like Mike every step of the way. And Mike himself, being an almost playful, microcosmic example of everything that's wrong with Trump's America, well, he's a great place to start if you're confused on which MAGA moron to pick. And truly, I don't have anything much more to say about Mike. He's a hack, he's a fraud, he's a fraudster, and he deserves to be made fun of. Him and his stupid pillows. But in the meantime, I don't want to go any deeper than that because quite frankly, Mike Lindell doesn't deserve it. This video is about making fun of him, mourning his lost potential, and finding another way to give the bird to Donald Trump. So with that, may I say good night and God bless to you all. Whew! Alright, another one of the books. This was a little shorter one. I don't think this guy's as deep as some of the stuff and the folks I've covered recently, but it's fun to make fun of the pillow salesman. Before I go, I would like to say, if you like what we do here at Fundy Fridays, please consider taking a moment to subscribe either to our Patreon or to YouTube memberships. They're basically the same. They both get you access to our awesome Discord, over 5,000 Genonites strong in there right now. Just talking about all the coolest stuff from the most interesting perspectives you can think of. It's a great time, and I hope to see you there someday. Likewise, that also gets you access to our weekly watch parties. We watch everything from Sister Wives to The Duggars to just random Christian movies, and shoot, sometimes we even just watch pro wrestling. It's awesome, and you get to chat with your favorite Genonites, including the Reverend and I, while you do it. It's only $1 or $3 a month to join either the YouTube memberships or the Patreon. Both of our tiers, by the way, they do the exact same thing. The $3 ones, just if you want to give us a little more money and you feel some coin burning a hole in your pocket, you can do it that way. We don't like to ask much because we know times are real tough, and we don't want people breaking the bank just to help us out. But if you can, it really is important, and it's the foundation of what we do here. That financial support is how Jen and I can do this full time and bring you these episodes. But if you're not the type of person who likes to join clubs or groups, may I offer up fundyfridays.shop, where you can find all of our awesome merchandise, including the brand new Attack of the Jezebel Spirit poster we just got in from our incredibly talented partner artist, Sophie McMahon. Her handle on Instagram is Dreaming of Johnny if you want to find out more, but she makes all these posters for us, and we love these things. They're retro inspired. They're super cool. We hope they earn a spot on your bedroom or living room wall soon. And if you don't like posters, we got t-shirts there too. It's a great time. Check out fundyfridays.shop. And in the meantime, if you don't have any money to give, that's fine too. We do ask that maybe you subscribe to our channel, hit that little notification icon, that little bell, so you can keep up with us and what we're doing. Right now, things are kind of weird in the world of left-wing media. We don't know exactly what's happening, so if you could follow us and keep track of us that way, it's a big help. We have a ton of people anymore who tell us that they can't see our stuff or that they don't hear about our new episodes. I don't know if YouTube turned off some notifications for some folks, or if they're doing something weird with, left-leaning content creators. I'm not trying to say anything, but subscribing to us and hitting that little bell icon, well, that gets you around that and hopefully shows you when we're putting out stuff. So if you want to just keep tabs on us and watch each video as it comes out, that's fine too. But otherwise, if you don't want to subscribe, if you don't want to give any money, that's all fine too. I hope you know. Your viewership, each individual video is enough. I cannot tell you people how much I love y'all. I'm not trying to talk too much about it, but I still am going through cancer treatments right now. I'm almost done. Here's to hoping it goes well. That is where the hair went, but you all are the ones who've been keeping us afloat financially, personally, emotionally, spiritually. You all, the Genonites, are the people that have gotten us through these tough couple of months. So thank you. But in the meantime, do something kick-ass this weekend. I don't know what it is. Whatever you want, it's a free one. And I hope to see you next time for whatever we talk about here on Fundy Fridays. We got some cool stuff lined up. So thank you all so much. Take care. And good night.
See, the three-way at Sacrifice, you got a 33 1/3 chance of winning. But I got a 66 2/3 chance of winning because Kurt Angle knows he can't beat me, and he's not even going to try. So, Samoa Joe, you take your 33 1/3 chance minus my 25% chance, and you got an 8 1/3 chance of winning at Sacrifice. But then you take my 75% chance of winning, if we used to go one-on-one, and then add 66 2/3%, I got a 141 2/3 chance of winning.